The following is brought to you by Total Seal Piston Rings, the leader in ring seal technology. TotalSeal.com. Hello and welcome to another edition of Hidden Horsepower, presented by Total Seal Piston Rings. I'm Joe Castello, and we are joined once again by the Director of Technical Sales at Total Seal. He's gotten a couple minutes away from the phone, folks. We're going to bring him on, Mr. Keith Jones. Keith, welcome back. How are you?
I am doing great, and thanks, Joe. I appreciate the intro. It's an exciting day. We've got a bunch of new equipment in the shop, and man, we're excited to see this stuff hitting the floor. And it's just, we'll say we're up on our game and up on our production. Did a nice little web thing on it this morning, and we'll just say it's an exciting day here at Total Seal.
Absolutely. You know, and we're recording Hidden Horsepower a little bit later, so those of you out there on the web, it might be a little after the fact, but you can go back to the Total Seal Facebook page and their YouTube channel and check out the factory tour that went on today, which is pretty great that you guys let people behind the scenes. Now, we've got a new episode, and it's pretty exciting because we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to kick it out to Baldwin Racing Engines. They've got, machine shop and dyno. Jeff Baldwin, kind of a sprint car, circle track, but more of a regional guy. Tell us a little bit about Jeff before we bring him on. I can tell you one thing. They got a beautiful website over there at Baldwin Racing Engines.
Yeah, I got to say, Jeff and his wife, I mean, they just first of all, great people, fantastic people. You couldn't meet nicer people. But really, really strives to, wonderful website, stays on top of all the data, beautiful shops, state-of-the-art stuff. This is a full service facility, and they really, really try to stay absolutely on top of the game. What is the latest in machining techniques, honing techniques? What's the latest ring packages? Just really striving to push that boundary all the time. And whatever end of it is, if you're going in there, just for a rebuild or a race engine, you're going to get the best you can do.
Well, that is great. Let's not wait any longer. Let's bring him on, Mr. Jeff Baldwin from Baldwin Racing Engines, and I see the word win is highlighted. Jeff, welcome to Hidden Horsepower. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How about you guys?
I am great. And I understand you are a Hidden Horsepower listener as well.
I do. I listen to it pretty much every day.
Wow. I don't know if we've got that many episodes, Jeff, to listen every day, unless you're doubling up on some of them.
We're doubling up on a few. That's all good, though.
All right. Have you learned anything?
Absolutely. Lots of good tech info on there. I recommend it to anybody.
Oh, that is fantastic. Thank you for saying that, number one. And, yeah, these celebrity engine builders out there and, some of the champions, they drop a nugget or two every now and again.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so let's get into what is your area of, I don't want to say expertise because it's obviously engine building, but where do we find most of your customers? I notice you do some 410 Sprints, some late model engines in your area out there, and we're talking about Missouri. What is the majority of your clientele?
Yeah, we definitely do some 410 Sprint stuff, a lot of UMP modified, definitely some super late model, but really just a broad variety of everything. But dirt is our primary, with probably Demolition Derby being our secondary, but really just, whatever comes through the shop, we pretty well do. So, but a lot of dirt oval. So
Demolition Derby. We have not heard that one yet, Keith.
We haven't, but I knew that, and he and I have talked about this. That's a unique set of challenges because, you look at engines that are out there, and you're racing. Let's say it's in a empty modified like Jeff brought up, and the water temp light comes on, or the water pressure light comes on, or the lack thereof, and you roll it in and you shut it down. These demo guys, we're not stopping until it's done. So the from a ring point of view, the challenges that puts forth to get a set of rings that's going to live and survive in at unbelievable temperatures because there's no water, but it's still running. I'll let Jeff kind of touch on that, but what an entire different set of challenges that puts forth.
Jeff?
Yeah, it's go ahead.
No, I wanted you to elaborate because honestly, the idea of built engines in Demolition Derby seems interesting to me, and I want to hear about more.
Right. So we started local here, couple as a crow flies, a couple miles from our shop here, but a couple bigger guys in the area that derbied started bringing the engines to us, and we would loosen them up and just kind of do what we thought needed to be done back early 2000s, right after we opened the shop here. But started seeing early on, just how much torture, how much abuse, the high crazy temperatures, and just started refining that just over and over and over. Every time we'd bring it back in for a freshen or rebuild or update, whatever, we would just see the rings being killed, the cam bearings being killed, just of course head gaskets and warpage in the block, warpage in the head. I mean, these things were coming off the track sometimes at 550, 600 degrees, so it's just an insane amount of heat. So, so as years went on, we've made our own bronze cam bearings and roller cam bearings, and obviously ring seal is a big thing now with some stuff we've talked about with Keith on the newer style steel rings, and because the cast rings obviously just won't hold what they need to do. So, but just, I mean, these guys are rolling out of the track on some of these national team shows. They've got $50,000-$60,000 invested in their car, so it's a big money sport. $20,000-$30,000 win on some of these shows, so it's a big deal.
Wow. I got to admit, and this is why Hidden Horsepower is so great, I'm learning something, too, on this given episode. I knew that Demolition Derby was a thing, and I knew that they paid some money, but I had no idea it was like that, Jeff. That's pretty amazing. And, yeah, if you're going to put that kind of money out there, you want to do everything you can do in your power to win it.
Absolutely.
Wow. All right. So I'm sorry I got distracted on the Demolition Derby deal. Let's talk about yourself. Like, how did you get started? How did you get into it? What was the genesis of getting involved in cars, motorsports, motor racing, and ultimately the engine building trade?
Yep. So as a kid, I was the kid that was tearing every toy apart, and it didn't matter what it was. I took it apart. I wanted to see how it worked, and some of the stuff I got back together, some of the stuff I didn't. So, so my brother mud raced, and so I was always with him at the mud races, and with all his friends that were kind of doing the same thing. So, kind of got me around motorsports a little bit, and then I guess in probably 92, 93, I started helping out on a circle track car, one of our local guys. And just started going to the track every week, and not really building engines at that point, except in the auto mechanics class and stuff like that. But just stock rebuilds where we just putting the stuff together basically. But so then I guess in 94, 95, I went to Nashville Auto Diesel, graduated there, and went straight into a machine shop at the local at Jackson, Missouri, where I grew up. And worked there for about a year, and really liked the work. I just, it was basically at that time, mid 90s. It was stock 350 Chevys, agricultural forklift, not much performance at this shop whatsoever. But and that's more what I was geared for. So stayed there for about a year, and went to an auto dealership, and kind of done the auto mechanic stuff for a while and detailing. We moved about 50, 60 cars a week. And from there, I went to a service manager position at one of my buddy's big tire centers in Jackson, Missouri there at Jackson Tire, and built a shop here in Friedheim in 2001, I guess. And at that point, I ended up buying out the machine shop that I started to work at when I graduated. So all very old equipment, mid-50s, Van Norman rotary broach and Quickway boring bar, and just the basic of the basic. But it got me going, and we've steadily been buying new modern equipment ever since. So the Rottler and the Rottler CNC hone and the Rottler block center and all the new stuff has definitely helped us tremendously. So
that's great. Now that's amazing that you are Like that is a success story in America right there. From kid tearing apart toys to successful entrepreneur and business owner. Keith, jump in with a question.
Yeah, Jeff, if you had a particular engine that you found to be in the group that you deal with the most challenging, we'll say outside of the demo derby engine, because we know what a battlefield that is, what do you find the most challenging format to work on? Whether it be, an open, we'll say drag race engine, you can do anything on, or is it more the restricted class stuff where, the rules are tight and you can only do so much? Where do you find the challenge there?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the restricted. We do a lot of 2-barrel restricted engines for people throughout the country. So that is we raced a circle track car here out of our shop for many, many years, from 2005 really to 2013 or 14 until we just got too busy. But that was a 2-barrel vacuum, 15 inches of vacuum at 1,000 RPM style engine. So we were grasping for everything we could get, whether it be the thin ring packages, we obviously were on total seal gapless rings at that point back then even. But just, several years into it, there was probably 15 to 25 cars at the track every night. And by the time we were, I'd say 2007 or 8, we probably had 2/3 of the field as far as engines go. So I think we went several years there probably without ever losing a race, whether it be our car or one of our customers. But the 2-barrel restricted classes are definitely a challenge, especially when we got vacuum rules to go with and all that. So.
For the builders that are out there, not again, this is hidden horsepower, and not giving away too many secrets. Where do you find in that kind of an engine? Obviously, we're trying to help you with ring seal and get the friction down, but where do you find the most? Where do you find the power, Jeff? Is it working on the head or the manifold or a cam or a little bit of everything? Is there any one particular place you like to focus on those?
Definitely a little bit of everything. Obviously, we're on some of those restricted engines. We're very, very rule set on what we can do in the cylinder head and manifold, so we can't really do a whole lot of port work. We use 30 seat and guide machines here, so we got a, especially in the Vortec head, we've got a really, really good valve job we put in them. Camshaft, obviously, we've played around with that for years and years, trying to get, the balance on that just right, where it not only drives good, but makes good power through the RPM. But I go back to, I think in 2006, we built a real thin, at that point, our thin ring pack is probably a 112 at that point. And I mean, as soon as I spun that engine over the first time, we were so used to using 16, 3/16 or bigger, on some. You could tell instantly, the engine was spinning over at 8 foot-pounds versus 21 foot-pounds. I knew instantly that this thing is going to be dramatically better, and it was. It was, just leaps and bounds better. The first year we had that engine in, which we done all kinds of stuff. We had a belt drive on the front. We had 7mm valves. We had beehive springs, which was a lot of stuff for a street stock back then, but it was nothing against the rules that were written at that point. For a while, they since then have corrected that, but they didn't let me get by with that too long. But we went that season. I think we had 14 wins out of 17 nights, I think, with our car that we ran out of the shop here. So they ended up moving us out of the class. They didn't care for that a whole lot. We were known as the class killers. So we moved up to hobby stock at that point, and which was more of an open 2-barrel class, so we could do whatever we wanted, which was fun too. It was an expensive engine to build, but those unlimited 2-barrel class, steel-headed classes are extremely expensive to build if you're going to push it for everything it's worth.
Well, that's how you build a name for yourself, though, right? Like dominate at your local track. Then everybody wants to come to you, and then you own the class, and you become successful. I'm interested in knowing about, Keith, we always talk about the folks out there who have a successful package and they stick with it, and they don't keep up with the latest, greatest technology, and they have a good business, right? And so why mess with it? Jeff, that's not you. you're out there taking part in the seminars, you're out there listening to podcasts, you're out there trying to gather information and stay on the cutting edge, and it's working for you. I want to know where like that comes from, because that's what we're trying to get other people to do, right? To be that person who knows they've got something good, but also knows that something better maybe lies ahead. Tell me about that whole thought process.
Well, I'm definitely competitive. So when we go to the track, we go to win. No matter if it's one of our super late model engines or UMP modified or one of our street stocks. So it doesn't really matter. Whether we're derbying or circle tracking or truck pulling. We go to win. So we do everything in our power to make sure that we build the best bullet we can build, and we've got a super flow get that thing dialed in and tuned up as best we can here at the shop. And I do try to travel to a lot of the tracks and visit our customers as close. I mean, we send engines all over the world as far as that goes. We got them in Iceland, we got them in Saudi Arabia, Australia, New Zealand. We're doing one right now for a guy in New Zealand, a bunch of them in Canada. So we do send them all over the world, but most of them are here in the States, obviously. But so I like to keep an eye on what we build. I really, when I'm at the circle track, I will very much focus on our car or whatever we've got out there running and what we're running against, as far as the car in front or the car behind it, how much we're gapping at the end of the straightaway, how if we're pulling out of the corner better than they are. So try to really focus on that stuff, and then feedback from the driver. It's the dirt track stuff. It's most of these tracks have went dry slick now, so it's all about throttle control and getting that engine to be as smooth as possible on the throttle. So and that in turn also, I truly believe that the thin ring packs have smoothed these engines out dramatically for the driver as well. It's the engines are freer, so they don't engine brake as bad when you lift off the throttle, and there's a lot to it.
Keith?
Well, one of the engines that you mentioned, and I agree with you on the ring pack as far as, like you say, smooth as a transition in the throttle. That's absolutely something that a lot of people miss out on and don't. You don't have that dramatic engine brake when you lift that throttle coming in and out of a corner. But you had mentioned pulling trucks, and that's a big market out there. And some people don't necessarily understand how these things are different than, say, a drag race car, because I'll see a lot of parts come out of pulling truck stuff. And one, you are dealing with the dirt. You do get some dirt through these things, but we'll just see if you agree with what I see. These things come out of the chute, with what I'll call a fairly high amount of wheel speed pretty fast. They get a lot of RPM in them real quick, and literally the thing gets pulled down like you had on a dyno, and you just kept loading it till you stall it. And so I see these things come up way high and then literally run them till they damn near crap out. And I see some rings come out of these things. They're pretty beat up. And I really attribute that to how that engine's being run. What do you see those same kind of things, Jeff? And what do you see that environment like on these engines?
Yeah, same thing you were saying there. The as far as the loading and just being pulled down to nothing at the end of the track, that's exactly what happens. And it depends on what class we're building for. There, some of these engines are square, where there'll be 4.25 bore, 4.25 stroke, or those don't get lugged as hard. They'll typically spin out at the end of the track. Where your big bore short stroke engines will typically twist them 9,500 plus, but again, they run out of steam at the end, and they'll choke themselves. So, but you're right, they do, they're harder on rings. But I will say, now that we've got the CNC hone with the Rottler now, we're able to get so much better ring seal, and the rings are better now than what they used to be. Back when we were, again, we've got a local guy that we ran the Ken 10 series with, Toby Cook, with a troublemaker truck. I mean, we literally won everywhere we went. But that was a square bore engine, 4.25 deal. So we would turn that engine 8,400. So not terribly high RPM, but we were running gapless total seal rings and that way back in the day, but again, I was nothing wrong with a CK10, but that's what we had back then, and I just wasn't getting, I wasn't getting the cylinders as good as they needed to be. So if we had the equipment we have now back then, it would be a total game changer too. But it's just good stuff nowadays.
So what's it like working with Keith and these guys when they come up with, a new concept, right? Like you're an early adopter, which is great, and they seem to be pushing the edge of the envelope. And we know from talking to Keith here on the show and Lake as well that they are very experimental, and they figured out some interesting things. Tell me a little bit about that creative process.
Yeah. Absolutely. Keith and Lake, both those guys are just fantastic to work with. I mean, and he, even goes back to the hone, the CNC hone we've got now. We've got sun in our backyard, and obviously Rottlers out in Washington. We do have a lot of Rottler equipment, and I talked to Keith and talked to a lot of people about hones, but talked to Keith, and I valued his opinion, and obviously they have Rottler in the shop there, so I wasn't as scared to go that route. And Ed Keebler is obviously he's 75 miles from us, so he was here last week at the shop, so he's fantastic to have here, right here with us all the time. So he brought me some new stones to try last week, so I'm trying to get some more valley depth for me. So some of these 410 engines where we're just coating them with alcohol every night, just hosing them down. So just trying to get some more valley depth in it and just trying to make it better. That's what it's all about.
Wow, Ed Keebler getting a shout-out on hidden horsepower there, Keith. I think that's a future episode that we've already been planning, and now we can, tease it a little bit.
I agree. I actually saw him on a Facebook post earlier today. I think he's out fishing in Florida somewhere. It's like, oh, man, rough to be him.
Got a couple of 80-pounders, I think it said.
Yeah.
Wow. Everybody's coming to Ed's tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, he's on the west coast of Florida, from what I recall, and he's from time to time, and great guy. Takes part in the trackside tech talks that we do at NHRA in Hartford's Pit when we do them, and it's Keith, it's Lake, it's Ed, and he knows his stuff, man. He absolutely knows his stuff, and that's where everybody's eyes light up. What you were just talking about, right? Valley depth. People are like, whoa, that much is usually the question. And Ed does his thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That valley depth number, and I know Jeff will agree. I mean, the numbers that we looked at, 4, 5, 6 years ago, and I've said this in some of our tech talks. I mean, where we're at today, and numbers that we're trying to hit, especially in some of these, we'll say diesels and alcohol motors that are just pouring just copious amounts of fuel. If you'd said to me, hey, you happen to have an RVK of an 80 or a 90 or 150, I mean, I'd have told you there's something wrong with you. There's no way you need numbers that high. Well, guess what? I was wrong. Just like everybody else out there, I learned. I learned from doing these things, working on these things, working with these numbers, and finding out, you know what? Hey, it really does need that number, and that's a benefit. So, that's a testament to Ed and guys like Jeff and Lake, and we're all trying to push this thing forward and learn from what we do, and hopefully we're making a difference.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I think it's gonna play over into the Derby engines as well. That that valley depth, we've kind of been in the same arena for quite a while now, but I think the valley depth is going to help that engine as well. Stay alive, especially with the new rings we had talked about a couple weeks ago.
Oh, look at this top secret stuff going on. Go ahead, Keith.
I agree with him, because one of the things that we talk about, Jeff, with the temperatures in the Derby engines, and this is something that the OEs have all come on and NASCAR's come on to. But oil is a coolant. It does have a tremendous cooling effect. So if we've got an oiling, a water system that's either failed or inadequate, we can use oil as the coolant. So if we can get more oil retention on the wall, we're going to have better ring seal. We're also going to get better thermal conductance.
Jeff, what you've told us what you do work on. I am curious about what would you like to work on. In that, is there an area of motor racing that you'd like to try your hand at, right? Like get into the mix on, like build an engine that you don't currently to compete, because you said it, you want to win. And what other arenas are you interested in?
Well, I've been a big monster truck fan my whole life. So we do some mega truck stuff, which obviously just it's the same type of truck, just not near the tire, nor is it a supercharged blown engine in it. But we do the sail mega truck, which he's Scott Green. He jumps amazing jumps and does some crazy stuff with his truck. But the monster truck arena would be something I'd like to get into more of the blown big block stuff. But we do such a broad variety. I really like everything. I mean, we do everything from lawnmower race stuff to the 410 Sprint, and everything in between. So a lot of street car, a lot of LS, a lot of Coyote, a lot of Hemi. We got a couple Hemis here right now, a couple Coyotes. LSs are obviously dominated everywhere, and we've got, I think, 85 engines in the shop right now, so we're buried like everybody else is. So,
wow, that is a lot. 85 engines. Now, since you're a listener, and I'm just giving you a little heads up, we are going to ask you about some advice to the next generation of guys like you. The people who are growing up, taking apart their toys, who maybe want to follow in your footsteps and get into this great career. So just simmer on that a little bit. Keith, dive back in with a question for Jeff.
Well, the question for you, Jeff, is, and this kind of goes back to the monster truck thing. It's like the challenge is, and it's for any engine out there, how well does it run upside down?
Yes, exactly. It's got to run upside down nowadays, doesn't
it? They certainly do some pretty crazy things. So how much do you feel, and I'll just, I hit it with that, the elevation of the modern, equipment that's in your shop, how much do you attribute to that to being the game changer or a game changer for you? I see the modern equipment as being pretty darn significant, and I know you kind of feel the same, but I wanted to hear it from you.
There's no doubt. We put our first Rottler block center in I think we put a F65 manual machine in 2015, I think. That was a huge game changer just in that alone. We were still using we had bought a Rottler, just a regular surfacer before then, but we were up until probably 2005 or 6. We were still using a rotary broach, trying to surface stuff, and the surface finishes were just pitiful. You just couldn't get them good enough. So the surfacing has changed dramatically, obviously, and the honing. We ran that CK10 up until we bought our new hone in the end of 2020. Put the Rottler 85 HX in, so that was a huge game changer. I mean, instantly seeing our engines pick up 15 horsepower, and when we leak them down, before we were 5-6% on an engine off the dyno. Now we're 0 to 1% at worst. Most of the time we're 0 across the board. So it's so much better, and then we just added the 69A block center, all CNC now, in mid 21, fall of 21, I guess. And that's just not only sped the process up, but just it's more accurate, and you can just do so much more with it. It's the profilometers, obviously, I think we bought that, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, whenever it was, but that in itself was a huge game changer in itself. That's the best, whatever the cost now, $2,500 or whatever, but that's the best money can be bought. I mean, that's or spent. Those things are worth their weight in gold.
Wow. And you know what? It's so cool to hear you say that, because that is a topic that comes up all the time, right, Keith? Like, there are people who just I don't know, should I get it, whatever, and Lake's carrying his around with him at all places at all times, and to hear you say that, Jeff, that just reinforces something that has come up on the show over and over again.
Yeah, it's definitely, like I said, if you don't have one, you need to get one, because without that, you're totally guessing. You have no idea. You can have the best looking cylinder wall in the world, and it could be terrible. It's just without having the equipment to measure it, you just don't know. So
absolutely the truth. It's like I like to say to people, it's like porting cylinder heads without a flow bench. It sure may be pretty, but man, it may not work with a darn. And honing's the same way. It might look good to you, and it may look appealing, but once you measure the numbers, it's like maybe not so much. It is one of those game-changing pieces of equipment, and people call me all the time, wanting me to give them a recipe of how to hone their cylinder, use this, and, I'll do the best job I can to kind of, try to guide them down that path. Here's what I think it's going to get you, but end of the day, you either need to have a profilometer or be working with a machine shop that has one, because that's the truth. This thing does not lie. It's going to tell you exactly what you got, whether you like it or not. And if it's not what you want, well, we need to fix it. We need to work on it, because at the end of the day, you are going to be the benefactor of getting that cylinder finish right.
I like those leak down numbers you were talking about too.
Yeah, I mean, it's ever since we put the hone in, that's where it's at. I mean, every engine, it doesn't matter, if we do some DT 466 international big 700 plus cubic inch tractor pull engines, and even the big bore stuff is that good. I mean, it's just we've got the six stone head on ours, and all diamond and CBN, but it just it's so round, and obviously you guys build such a good ring, it seals it. I mean, you don't have any questions whether it's. I mean, they break in by the second or third hit, I'm sealed up and it's ready to rock and roll. So, if it even takes that long, usually it's sealed up on the break-in.
Well, that's a testament right there, and it's kind of like my partner Lake here. It says it's a soup. We've got to have all the ingredients in there, and having the profilometer check the surface finish, having the right hone to get good bore geometry, get it straight, get it round, and then having the right ring. It all has to work together, and if any one piece isn't, then it's all going out the window.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's funny because I'm learning about this whole process, and it's interesting in that it is exactly that. It's a process. You got to have the right equipment, the right idea, the right machine, and the right people working on it, and then you can make some power. Keith, final questions for Jeff as we get ready to wrap up another episode, and I want to hit him with our advice for the next generation. But I know we've touched on a couple of areas, but I know you've always got something that is not necessarily out of left field, but something extra to put on top.
Well, my question to Jeff is, what's next? What's the next challenge? Kind of like Joe was talking about engines you haven't built. What's the next thing for you? What's that thing that you want to dive into? Personal project. Not necessarily engine related, but what's the next thing? What's the next thing you want to work on?
Well, I don't know. One of these days, obviously my wife works here at the shop, so we stay just crazy busy, and she does a fantastic job running the shop. So we're probably going to end up building another shop, just for more space. I mean, we're 8,500 square foot right now, and just need more room all the time. So that's something that's going to probably be coming here sooner than later. But I'd like to build another drag car, another Chevelle or something for myself and the wife to go out and have fun with, and we got 2 girls, so something to play around with when we have a spare minute to go out and do so. But probably do a supercharged LS or something in it, something a little fun to play with. But it's always just got to have the time to do it. It's a struggle.
You're working on other people's stuff. Hard to find time to work on your own stuff, right? That could be a customer engine. Makes perfect sense. So let's talk about those folks out there that I know for fact do exist, right? They come up to me at the NHRA or they speak with us at PRI, and they listen to the podcast and they listen to everybody answer the questions. And they're not all exactly the same, but the theme is the same. The next generation of engine builders coming into this trade who realize that internal combustion isn't going anywhere, especially in racing and motorsports, the dirt tracks around the country. Let's say that there's a relatively young person that's, wanting to be the next Jeff Baldwin and follow in your footsteps as an entrepreneur, not just as an engine builder. What advice would you give that person?
Oh, I mean, first of all, I would say attention to detail. It doesn't matter if it's running the business or building the engine or machining or cleaning. It doesn't matter from one end of the spectrum to the other. It's the most important thing there is, because everything matters. It doesn't matter, like I said, from cleaning to machining, assembling, and dynoing. It's so important. Every little thing is so important. My wife is a stickler on not only details, but filling out the paperwork and having a system. It doesn't matter if it's like I said, doing the assembly, measuring the bearings or whatever. If you have a system and you do it the same way every time, you can at least go back to that and say, hey, I know it was done, and this is why, and so on and so forth. But that's one big thing is attention to detail. Clean as you go. Pick tools up, pick stuff up. If something's laying around, pick it up and put it away. Don't just leave it lay there and let somebody else deal with it. It's so much of the youth is, it's somebody else's problem, but it's something that we see in workers. It's the guys that hold themselves accountable for everything they do. It's so much better for the business owner and the worker just to go along and do what they need to do. And the last thing I would say is, if you're working along and you have a problem, or something comes up, try to think ahead and have a solution to the problem before you come up to the boss and say, hey, I don't know what to do here. There's obviously going to be that, but if you think ahead and think through stuff, bring a solution to the problem. So not just I don't know how this is. I don't know what it is. Let's go figure it out. So
I like that. I like all three of those. Actually, Keith, those are right on point and a little different than some of the others we have gotten, especially that last bit. Sounds like it comes from personal experience.
It really does, and I applaud for Jeff for saying that, because even if they come to you with the wrong idea, you can correct them. But hey, at least they were thinking about it. At least they were trying to come up with a solution, and that speaks volumes about the person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Well, Jeff, I think this has been fantastic. I really appreciate what you're doing. And as I started off saying, I like the fact that you have put a lot into your website. Like, this is a first-class website. Not everybody has got effort going into that, right? Because it's an engine shop, right? Like, you don't need that. But it's very helpful, especially for the host of Hidden Horsepower.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's my wife doing that, so.
Well, tell her thank you very much. I think it was a great job. Another great episode. Keith?
Absolutely. I really appreciate it, Jeff. I very much appreciate you taking the time. Like you said, you got 85 engines in the shop. You're crazy busy. This is an hour out of your day that'll take you, a day to catch back up from it, and I really appreciate you taking the time.
No, that's no problem. It was an absolute honor to be on here for sure.
We appreciate it, and we will we'll do it again in the future. Jeff from Baldwin Racing Engines, we really appreciate it. Thanks for joining us on Hidden Horsepower.
Goodbye.
There he goes, Jeff Baldwin from Baldwin Racing Engines. Keith, that was great. He was right on point about so many different subjects.
Yeah, Jeff's a great guy, and not that he needed anybody to introduce him out there, but so glad to have him on, and maybe get him exposed to some people that don't know Jeff. Great shop, great guy. I can't say any more about him. He's just fantastic.
Well, and that's exactly the point, though. There are engine builders all over the country, all over the world, that are rock stars in their own regions. And, some go national, kind of like bands, right? Kind of like musicians. Like, you go to the right city and you'll find a band that is killing it out there, and everybody knows them and everybody loves them, but maybe you don't know them because you're not from that area, and then they go big. But Jeff is obviously doing really well. And learning about the Derby cars, Keith, I didn't know about that these guys are putting big money into demolition Derby cars. I want to watch that.
Jeff blew my mind when he and I talked about that a little while ago. I had no idea they were putting that kind of money, that was that kind of prize money. I remember going to the county fair, and they've got grandma and grandpa's old wagon, and they're backing into each other, and it was a lot of fun. But this is a serious deal. Big money cars, big money prizes.
Yeah, and that way you got to keep it alive, man. It has to stay alive, and they got to put a lot of effort into it, which is amazing. Speaking of effort, tell everybody out there how they can get a hold of you if they've got a project, whether it be a street car, maybe they got an engine builder that is asking about rings. Who can they call? How can they get a hold of you?
Well, you can always reach out to us. You can come at us through the website, totalseal.com. My email address is on there, as well as all the other guys. We also have the Request a Ring form that's on there. If you know some stuff about your application, you just want to fill that out, that comes to us. We'll go over it, figure out what the best ring pack is for you, get back to you. Or you can always call us, 800-874-2753. Just give us a holler anytime. Reach out. Email, reach out through the site, call us on the toll-free, and we'll gladly help you out.
Excellent. Keith, great job. Always love doing these episodes. This one was fantastic.
as well, Joe. Really appreciate it. And again, appreciate everybody taking the time to listen. Hope you guys have as much fun as we do doing these.
And be sure to go back to their Total Seal Facebook page and YouTube channel and check out the factory tour, all the new equipment that has just been upgraded in Total Seal. You will love it. They do a great job. He's Keith Jones, the Director of Technical Sales for Total Seal Piston Rings. I'm Joe Castello. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, WFO Joe. I do a podcast as well called WFO Radio, where we talk NHRA drag racing and a whole bunch of other motorsports on there. You can check it out as well. Please subscribe, write a review, 5 stars, all that, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, so that more people can hear Hidden Horsepower. We'll see you next time right here on Hidden Horsepower, presented by Total Seal Piston Rings.